liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Beagle,
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present?
Councilmember Behrman,
President.
Councilmember Gotchel,
Here.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox, here, Councilmember Sharp,
President.
Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight? City Manager?
Mayor, I have no changes nor additions, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not true. I forgot. We do have that walk-on resolution report, sorry.
Okay.
Regarding poverty exemption issue we need to address.
Oh, okay. Thanks. All right.
Yeah, we have to print it in case people need it.
We'll make that new business number 8.
The email, but I might need to refer to it.
Anything else?
No, that's it. You're on.
Any
Sorry for
further
my forgetfulness there. Appreciate the clerk pointing it out for me.
Is there a minute at 8?
Yeah, that'll be new business number 8. None from the diet. All right. Approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes to approve tonight. That's from the regular city council meeting minutes of May 24th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the regular city council meeting minutes of May 24th, 2022. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have one letter of correspondence tonight. That's a letter of resignation from the Cemetery Board by Kay Ash, and I would like to thank Ms. Ash for all of her services to the city. We appreciate that. She's been on the board for 18 years, and wish her the best. Next up is the first call to the public. The call to the public rules are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. The person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public. Moves us to city manager's report. We have 2 tonight. The fire monthly report of April 2022. Any questions? Councilmember Gotchel.
Thank you. So for this report and then others, since you've been running the ship over there basically, and even before that, since you've been with us for a long time, what kind of percentage would you say of the total calls in this report and other ones are not being adequately responded to in terms of numbers of staff?
We typically go with probably 10% that are only staffed by one person. So that could be a medical, that could be a car accident, that could be a car fire. But typically, monthly, it's about 10% that are only staffed with one person.
What would be a ideal or normal, I guess, expectation in terms of how many people should, at a minimum, respond to every call?
For any medical, a minimum per our state license for BLS transporting agency, we should have a minimum of 2 at all times.
So we're not meeting that necessarily.
That is correct.
And then I had heard kind of something along those lines. There was like a 6-car accident in the last few months that we had one person respond. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir. We had a 5-car accident at Maple and Wixom that only had one person respond.
Okay. Is it, I mean, on your concern level, how frequently would you say you're concerned that we're not going to have an adequate number of people respond or adequate response time?
Every day.
Every single day? Okay. What do you think, in your perspective, it would take to to adjust things in terms of staffing issues? Do you think it's schedule, our current schedule and bringing people on, or we could do it with our current schedule?
Obviously, the first thing we would have to do is find a way to staff the station every day with a minimum of 2 people. Yes, could it be done possibly with the current staff schedule? Yes, but it would highly exceed overtime hours.
Do you think morale-wise, if the schedule got worked out, that would help?
Absolutely.
Do you think morale is playing a factor into getting people to respond?
I don't believe morale is necessarily the factor. I believe that just finding a work-life balance has a lot to do with that.
Okay. And do we currently have 8 people on staff in total?
In total, we have 9. We do have a new hire that has 0 training. He's actually just started EMT class just over a month ago.
Okay.
So we have 9, but one of them has 0 training.
Can he actively respond to?
He actively responds to the station and learns equipment and goes over things. We help him with his training for medical anytime he's at the station. So he's actively coming to the station, but we can't actually take him on medical calls.
Okay. Those are kind of the questions I had. I wanted to, just aside from that, thank you for your dedication to the city and stepping up the last few months. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Thank you. Out of those 9 people, well, we know 1 is in training, so the 8 people that are fully trained, how many of those are full-time and how many are part-time?
4 are full-time and 4 are part-time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Absolutely.
Next up is the police monthly report of April 2022. Any questions? Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
I see that our larceny went up quite a bit, and I was just wondering what we do when there's any type of break-in like that in a subdivision or even an apartment complex. Do we notify the homeowners groups, or do we do anything like that?
Usually not, because in this case, and I did take a look at that number, that's a high number. I was curious to see what type of larcenies those were. I mean, are we talking about gasoline now? And we're not. One of those 20 was actually a larceny of gas. The overwhelming majority of that 20 was larceny of parts and accessories, catalytic converters.
Oh,
And we're seeing a lot of those in areas where there's a high density of motor vehicles.
parking lots.
Parking lots, businesses, apartment complexes, where we have a high volume of motor vehicles.
Do you think that it would be beneficial at all to put out some type of notification to people that live in that area, just so they know? I mean, I don't know what you can do to prevent your catalytic converter from being stolen, but, you know, if people aren't locking their doors, which to me
Right.
it seems like common sense, but I know a lot of people don't do it. Do you think that might be helpful?
Certainly.
And I know it's
Yeah.
more work.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that, but any HOA homeowners meeting that I go to, I typically will remind the people, if you're able, bring your car into the garage, but if you're not, at least lock it up and bring the valuables inside. But no, it's certainly worth a reminder, and it's certainly worth a reminder to the managers that we have a relationship with in the apartment complexes, certainly. The catalytic converters, that is a tough crime to prevent, but certainly leaving your door unlocked is not a tough crime to prevent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Councilmember Sher.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Moore, along the lines of Councilmember Grenlund Fox's question on increases, I mean, it looks like year over year we're at like 40% increase or 35% increase from 21. But the bulk of them are in non-criminal complaints and other service requests. Can you remind me what are in non-criminal complaints and why perhaps we had such an increase? Or is there any specific reasons that you can name?
Sure. And I saw that as well. That is a huge jump from 21 to 20 in the non-criminal complaint category. Non-criminal complaints encompasses warrant arrests, assists to the fire department where somebody's sick or somebody's injured, assists to other law enforcement agencies, assists to other government agencies, extra patrols. So if we get an area that's been a hotbed for larcenies, when we do a directed patrol in that area, that goes into that category. Burglary alarms, fire alarms, and animal complaints are the primary ones that end up in that non-criminal complaint category. As to the increase, I can only speculate that as we come more and more out of the pandemic, we're getting more and more calls of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right, very good. Next up is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next up, is unfinished business. We have no unfinished business tonight. Moves us to the next item, which is discussion of a road millage. Councilmember Gatcho, you asked to put this on. We'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you. Kind of bringing up what we started to discuss about a year ago. And at that time, Mr. Sigma and Mike Darga had some information about PACER ratings and investments into our roads, and the fear, and I think that's kind of shared, or the understanding is shared by most everyone or everyone on council, that we probably aren't adequately funding our local road program. And so worked with Mr. Sigma a little bit to update some things, and hopefully after seeing the updated information, have a discussion amongst council about how we can address the road funding moving forward.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we dusted, as Member Gottschall had indicated, we dusted off the information from last year, and we have not yet done our PACER ratings for this summer yet, but we do plan to do that here within the next couple months. But what the data that you are seeing is from last year, but we tried to put a 2020 spin to it, if you will. So.
And to be clear, we haven't done any road projects that would have improved our numbers, correct?
That's correct. Yep. So the road funding, and for keeping with the road funding and keep up with the repairs, that we want to be consistent, and we are talking about a current millage that we have through 2026, and we would need to do something after or before that to continue the road millages or to continue our road program. So right now we're trying to figure out how much is enough, and this information should help you. So the goal is to maintain or even increase our overall PACER ratings over the next several years. So just as we use this slide just to show what kind of PACER ratings are, it's a rating system that's from 10 down to 1, and it just shows the types of maintenance that are involved in each of those. So we rate them in a 3-category type system: good, fair, and poor. And the good ones, a PACER rating would have a 10 to between 8 and 10 for the most part, and we do routine maintenance on those types of roads, which includes crack sealing, minor patching, some snow. Obviously, we do all our snow removals on our majors and local roads. A Paisley rating between 5 and 7. Typically, we have much more preventive maintenance. We do a crack seal and patch work. Surface treatments can and do happen. We have a sealer type program that we've started to instigate over couple of roads just to see how well that seals up the road and then progresses through time. We have some non-structural. Sometimes we do an overlay. We're going to be doing an overlay in Maple Run this year. And recently we did do some concrete joint repairs. The major parts that we have done this year so far were along Grand River, the entrances to Oak Creek, Center Oaks, and Grand Oaks, if you want to take a look at that concrete work that we've done there. And the poor ratings are typically 1 to 4, and I like to think of these ratings as we've given up hope. We have to wait until we repair them completely. And basically that's what we do at that point. It just doesn't make sense to add any more preventive maintenance to that without doing a full reconstruction.
When you say structural overlay, do you talk just stripping and resurfacing, or are you talking removal, fixing the?
So a surface overlay would be, we'd take off about 2 inches of asphalt, and we would add new asphalt to it. That would be the overlay portion. So we call them milling first and then overlay.
Do we have any roads that you think we should tear out, put new base down, and then?
There are several of those. Usually when we've lost the base, there's a lot more webbed cracking, and we may need to do some of that type of repairs on, for example, West Maple, which was our next major road. It's in sections though, where we want to make sure that as long as the base is good, we can mill over it and just do that. So it really depends on 2 things. The base material that's there, and then also the drainage around it. So if you have an area that continues to flood, that water sits there during the winter months and freezes and thaws and just kind of pushes up the asphalt.
And just in case they're watching, engineering starts on West Maple in the fall and the resurfacing in the spring, right?
That is
okay.
That is the goal. Yes, sir.
So adding on to what the mayor just mentioned there about the reconstruction, that map that has the different roads and colors that was provided to you as part of the presentation, and there's a larger copy of it maybe at your desk. Hopefully that's the way it went. You can see that there's like 1, 2, 3, and 4, which would be the poor categories. 5, 6, and 7 would be the fair categories. 8, 9, and we didn't even bother listing 10 would be the good category on that map that would match those Paisley ratings you just saw on the screen a second ago.
Typically, the 10s are the day that we repave, and then it starts to degrade.
I guess my question, where I'm not quite following, is like, for example, Maple Run. You have it labeled as color that it needing total reconstruction, but all we're doing is an overlay, correct?
That is correct in that.
So is an overlay going to last on a subdivision that is red?
It depends on those 2 things. The underlayment that's there currently, and this one, when it was initially built, they had a good base material that was put down before they ran the asphalt. So we do some core samples throughout to determine whether that is still the case. And so yes, we're going to do an overlay there, and we believe that it'll take.
So it's a judgment call that gets made on those when you have information that indicates the base, even though the surface is as bad as it appears, the base is strong enough to make it the overlay.
And then my understanding is you're sloping it more, so there'll be better drainage to help get the water off.
That's the secondary part.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Hey, Tim,
A higher crown. Yes.
what do you think is how many years you get out of a road from just milling it? Is it like 10 years where if you went down and took the base out and replaced the base, and it's like 20 years or something like that?
Yeah, typically an asphalt road is a 20-year road, and again, it depends on those different things. we intend, or we expect that we're gonna see 20 years out of, for example, Maple Run.
Okay, so you're
When we're
20
completing.
years out of that, okay.
That's the intent, that's where we're programming it right now.
And the overlay,
And the overlay is the same at that point. Once the asphalt goes down, it should be a 20-year lifespan, 15 to 20. So these Pazer ratings, obviously, once we put down the asphalt or once we have a new concrete road, they're excellent for a time, and they start to degrade and go from excellent down to good and very good, or from very good to good. And once, the goal is that if we have a good road and we do some preventive maintenance to it, we want to bring it up to a very good road for a time again. So we're trying to, keep we're trying to do the best fix for the given situation, depending on how much money that we have available at the time.
We got a couple of questions, Deputy Mayor.
So in terms of where we might be with the new PACER study, are we getting closer to determining what an amount to keep us up to even keel, at least in the 6 to 10 category, and so we can start doing some calculations for what that millage should be?
Right.
Should we go back out for it in 2024?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do have, like last year, we do have a Pazer rating scale, if you will, based on a 0.25 mil advance. So we broke it down into 0.25 more, 0.5 more, and 0.75 more than what we currently have.
So you'll give that an update once we get the new PACER ratings. What does a PACER study cost us as a city right now?
Typically, our guys do the Pazer ratings. They work with MDOT, and they are trained for the Pazer ratings. Sometimes we check with HRC to go through a few things, but actually we do the Pazers themselves in-house.
Because we used to have someone from HRC was sitting in the passenger
Yep.
all the time
Yep.
in the old days when we did it.
Right.
How many city vehicles do we have dash cams on currently? Maybe
Pardon? How about city
How many-
vehicles?
How many city vehicles do we have dash cams on currently?
7 patrol cars.
7 patrol cars?
Yes.
The reason I asked is that they recently had the Auto Tech Week here at Suburban Showplace, and there's a lot of technologies in AI that's being developed now based on actual dash cam along with some sensor data that can do what I would call continuous real-time PACER study. And we should keep an eye on those technologies over the next 5 years or so to see if they're worth deploying for vehicles that have, some of the advanced either camera systems or whatever. So let's keep an eye on there. All right. Looking forward to see what that study's going to come out. So.
Yeah.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Mr. Sigma. Couple things. I enjoy the Pazer ratings and understanding it, and I'm not saying to, skip ahead quickly or move along. I'm just, I trust you have a system. You understand, the priority, how to prioritize, what needs what. Maybe you're going to get to this, but I also understand that, just concentrating on the worst roads at the expense of the, medium to okay roads, well, we'll never get the reds and oranges done in time before, some medium yellow turn red themselves. So, what really is critical that we get down to, I want to talk about is my favorite chart,
Right.
this one.
Yes.
It's all about, budgeting for getting this stuff done. If you had, unlimited resources, we could have all these roads green eventually.
Right.
And one little side question, related to that. I've heard in the past that, from Oakland County, that if the budget was not a concern, and of course it always will be, but if for some reason it wasn't, the resources, the manpower, to get the roads done, isn't there to make it happen, very quickly at least. Is that a concern as you set things up and plan and time that, you can't always get the resources, in place in a timely manner to get the roads done? Has that been an obstacle?
Yes, and you're absolutely right, that we're limited by not only the financial part, but we're also limited by the people that we have reviewing it. So if we don't have HRC or an engineering company reviewing them, and we have our DPW, I have 2 qualified folks and myself that can go through that PACER rating. So it does.
Well, I love
it. Does have a factor on that.
Yeah.
Because of that, though, it's the systematic part. We're always evaluating our roads to some extent with DPW, because we drive them just like everyone else, and they go through all the neighborhoods, and it's like, boy, we got to fix Maple Road. It's getting really bad, and Potter's not far behind it, and those are just the major roads. So then you start looking at the locals, and if you think back, Wildwood, Loon Lake, Trails of Loon Lake, they all came in about the same period, and we were 2004, 2005. They were doing 30 taps of water system, connections on homes every month, and so those subdivisions came in fast. And since then, well, now we're getting up to their 20-year marks, and they're all due. So there's some priorities that go along with that. Some of them held up much better than others, and a lot of that is because of drainage. So we built them right. We feel that they were built right initially, and they went through all the standards. So a lot of those will be able to just mill and overlay. There are some that have had other drainage issues that we didn't foresee that we may have to spend a little more money on.
The other point that Councilmember Smiley is getting to is the situation where the firms in the state capable of doing these road projects are not sufficient to sit there and fix every road in every town anyway, number one. Number two, that's being stressed further by the fact that these additional funding coming from the federal level for ARPA and other things is making additional monies available for infrastructure. So more and more dollars are still chasing that insufficient pool of contractors. So costs are going to go up, notwithstanding what's going on in a larger macroeconomic sense, where inflation is going to cause it to go up further still because of it being 7 and 8% inflation currently. So to the extent that we look at that graph that Councilmember Smiley talks about, and how much would this result in terms of a raise in our PACER at this level of investment, keep in mind that level of investment is going to have a decreasing impact because the costs are going to go up, and when costs go up, less road gets done. And
right.
Then the PACER rating is correspondingly less positively impacted. So it's a catch more than 22 at this point. There's a lot of different things involved that make it difficult from our standpoint of getting roads done. I think that was one of your points.
No, thanks. I was going to try to get back to that, but
Yeah.
that takes care of that. I understand. But just take that just a little bit farther. Just timing-wise is a concern too. I mean, we can have these roads prioritized, but they might take, I don't know, a year or two, or hopefully, but maybe longer, to get the crews in, the road, repair, and that can. It's just an element that we have to also consider with this. Time is unfortunately an issue as well. Not like it's on fire, we got to get it done now. There's that, but there's also, hey, it might be a while before we get the next crew in. I'm saying crew is lack of a better word. We got to prioritize based on that too.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Good. And I'm sure you got a handle on all this, but that's the part I just wanted to overview and clear up. I know you got this, but we'll get to the budget part soon enough here. I know that slide's coming. I know my slide's coming here.
I'll get there.
Okay.
These PACER ratings, if you put a little bit in, we're trying to, raise the bar each time we do something. So if we do preventive maintenance, we're trying to improve the road or actually extend that life further out so that we can do the less expensive things on specific roads so that they extend the life on those so that we can get to them at a later date. And that's what this slide represents. So the one here that we struggle with is, this is a contrast between 2008 Phaser ratings and the 2021, and we're definitely in the red for the most part, and those poor lane miles up to number 4 or 5 Phaser ratings we're not gaining any ground on these, and that's the major point of what we've been talking about.
I mean, just off of...
This next slide is the Phaser ratings that you see in front of you. I tried to make 11 by 17 and seemed easy enough to read at that point. Sometimes on those Phaser ratings, depends on where they are. We do sections of even like 1/10 of a mile. So when we did the GIS rendering of this, it may fall between good and fair and good. And so if it were fair and good, we typically try and take the 80% rule. So if 80% of it's fair, it's going to be a fair rating, regardless of that half a block that's good. So that's what you're seeing there.
And again, the categories there are the colors that are listed there. 1 through 4 would be the 4 category, 5, 6, and 7 would be fair, and 8, 9, and elusive 10 would be good.
So how are we compared to Michigan roads? We're fixing those as well as a state. Those same basic time period. Actually, they're not losing as much as we were. They did start at a lower rating, if you will, back 2008 era, and we're showing that they do over the similar time period. They're not getting any better either. So it's not just a community issue, is what I'm trying to explain here. It is also a state issue that we're
And if you compare the local graph to the state graph, we're doing worse in the poor category. Our poor category grew worse, if you will, than the states did. We did a better job of maintaining the fair category because their fair category actually went down, and I'd say ours was pretty consistent. And then we lost ground in comparison to the state on the good category. Our good category did slip by a much larger percentage than the state did if you look at those graphs in comparison. So we did a little bit better in the mid-band, but poorly at the higher end and the lower end.
So our anticipated projects right now is, as I explained earlier, we did some industrial concrete repairs, and we're working on Maple Run 2. And we'll also be going before council at some point, I'm hoping, with a couple of extra projects, which would be the courts of Highgate along Loon Lake yet this summer, if we can convince our contractor that we're working with on Maple Run to extend their fees to those roads. Next year, obviously, we are planning West Maple, so I am on record, Mr. Mayor, for West Maple and from Wixom all the way to Beck, and we do intend to do that. We're also working with RCOC on the 2023 project. They're in the design phase right now for that, and they hope to put that bid out as early as January of.
Was that a tri-party?
That is a tri-party issue that we would be needing to fund, and our funding is.
But it's not going to be as much as it would for us to pay for the whole thing.
Correct.
Very good.
Yep, and similar to the Pontiac Trail piece that is actually intended to be completed yet this year. We kind of slowed down that process. If you notice, they did do some work in Walled Lake already, and they had intended to go all the way through to the the city line, but we asked them to slow that process down while we did the airline trail, just to keep traffic at least moving through our downtown. And we also are they're also looking at next year doing a culvert repair just very close to the Corex facility, so they're trying to work that one in too. And then 2024 is Cliffs on Loon Lake, and if we don't get the funding through, we'll do the courts on 2024. So these are the current first few years of our 10-year capital plan that is listed in our budget. So the first of the graphs that we've been talking about, as you can see, this is the current millage, and if we run through this current millage, we will have gone from just over 4 down to almost 3.5. So our gain, we're losing ground based on the millage that we currently have. To restate that in words, the current road millage is 1.1439 mils, which expires in 2026, and based on hard caps on taxable values increase set by Michigan laws and the city's tax revenues, we can only naturally raise this by the CPI or 5%, whichever is lower. So recent inflationary issues are obviously above 5%, while the state CPI number for this tax is at 3.3. This was resulting in a net decrease as well. So not only are we losing ground on the financial aspects just as a whole, but we're also losing just based on the CPIs.
So people who have been in business for a while might recall the classic study that was done by Plant Moran somewhere along the line. Michigan's municipal finance model is broken, essentially. When you have Proposal A capping increases, we don't get the benefit of large inflationary increases because it gets capped downward by Proposal A, which means that even when we have good times in terms of property value valuations increasing, we don't get the full benefit of that. It gets capped down by Proposal A, and that creates a losing proposition for municipalities that are relying on those valuations to help them maintain the costs that they're experiencing that are growing beyond those inflationary figures. Our health insurance, potentially the road costs when there's more money chasing fewer available project teams, those kind of things. So that's generally the gist of this. It's that classic terminology, Michigan's municipal finance model is broken, and that's what we're running up against partially.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
When did the millage start? Again, I can't remember, I don't have that in front of me.
I believe that was a 20-year millage.
Was it 20? Yeah.
I
So
do not recall.
we can see what happened inflation-wise over those 20 years, and so.
At a minimum.
And the millage rate's lower than it used to be with the other aspect of Proposal A is the Headley Amendment, rolling it back. That's not what our millage rate was. It's been rolled back because of the effects of Headley as well.
Where in reality, it should have gone up at least by the CPI
To
year over year.
To stand with the inflationary increases, correct?
We need to really take that into consideration when we decide.
Right. The other thing that happens, if we were to do something like in 26, if we go back with the same millage question hypothetically, that would allow it to go back to the original millage amount if it gets approved. Then it would immediately start to get rolled back by Headley if we're still experiencing those effects.
Yeah. Which is a big problem
Yeah,
for construction costs.
indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Real quick, just so I make sure, because I'm not sure I understand that completely. Oversimplified version of that is, we're not going to get any more money from, for these roads or for anything because of that hard cap you're talking about.
We're not going to get as
need
much
more-
as we would have otherwise absent that hard cap. Right. Because right now, like the inflationary impacts are 7-8%. If that were the CPI for the year, it would get reduced down to 5% under Proposal A. Headley rollback would result in the millage is getting rolled back to provide tax relief to people because of the inflationary increases to the property values as well. So it's a double impact to us. Headley rollback cuts the millage rates, plus our property values don't go up in line with inflation because they get reduced.
Gotcha. So if we need more funding for roads or any other project, we need our own millage increased. That's the bottom line of what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, municipalities have known
I got
that
it.
we're never
Sure.
going to catch up with the problem, but with any funding that we get from any other source, it's going to be local millage.
That's right. I just wanted to make sure that that was what it meant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berman?
Thank you. Two questions. First, I don't know if you know this answer, but assuming we didn't have the Headley problems that came from that, what would our millage have to be today, or would be today, without that?
I do not know that answer.
So I mean, are you basically taking what it was and adding 5% each year?
You would take what it was and then Headley reduces.
I know, but I'm saying, if Headley didn't exist, what would it need to be today to get the same dollar amount?
That's when we'd have to look at with the Paisley rating update, or just take an educated guess at it compared to what it was last year when we had the
Well, I'm just saying, I assume, I mean, maybe that's too far to assume, but that 20 years ago, they figured out what that number needed to be, and, obviously Proposal A has made that not work. But if we could figure out what that increase was, that could be the answer to the question of, one, what we need. And then two, the second thing is, I mean, I know a lot of municipalities have these millages for local roads, and some don't. And so the other option would be is if this expires, for us to be going in, fixing these roads and then putting assessments on all the homeowners there?
For local roads, we would theoretically be able to do that. The major roads would be as a city, and it would be basically back to a millage at that point, because that would be the assessment at that point, right?
Okay, so I guess, is it possible for us to put something to I don't know, it would be a survey out to the residents that are they comfortable that when the local road millage expires, the potential for them having to have an assessment to get their roads fixed if they need to be fixed? Option one. Option two, extend the current millage where we're still not making any headway, but we're fixing what we can. Or option three, are you willing to pay more to get all of our roads up to par? Because I mean, I would vote to pay more, but I don't know what our residents would vote for, and I think a lot of us up here are comfortable with voting to pay more, but again, I'd like to see some data of what our residents would want.
To get back to your question that began, I think, before that last set of questions there, in relation to calculating what we would need in terms of projections of what we would need over a period of time, that'd be a pretty heavy undertaking, would be a heavy investment of time and monies, probably with consultants involved. And we were waiting to see what the reaction was amongst the council in terms of this discussion, the appetite for, do you want to see that kind of data? Do you want to see what the possible, are you interested in potentially discussing putting forward a millage increase in front of voters? If so, then we would spend the time and resources to give you that information in terms of what a number might look like over a 20-year period. It's going to be as educated a guess as we can make, but that would involve a lot of work and a lot of expense. I would say, a lot, relatively speaking, it would involve some expense. So we're waiting to see what the outcome of this discussion is, then we can take a look at that and start to work with our engineering company to come up with that kind of a projection. As to the other question, there are communities where special assessment districts were used on roadways, and it was a shock-like experience for the residents that were involved. So that we could certainly do some sort of a survey. We'd have to put some information together and talk about, so a typical X number mile local roadway spread amongst X number or Y number of residences at an average value of this would result in a tax bill of that, and those kind of things were resulting in $10,000 and $15,000 and $20,000 bills for households to pay over a period of time over a special assessment district capture. So those would be some eye-opening experiences, and that might be something that would be worthwhile to do some surveys to that effect.
I think that that's a part of the explanation, I guess, if we did go to put something on the ballot, because I don't know that, I wouldn't recommend it, and seeing the effect that it's had on my clients, where they base it on road frontage, and if you have a corner lot, you're especially screwed. And it turns into another lien on the property, because the buyer's mortgage company won't let that be an assumable assessment, so you're easily talking, Farmington Hills was notorious for this, but any project that got done, water mains, roads, immediately 18,000 plus. And so that would prevent people from being able to sell because they weren't going to net what they needed to net. So I wouldn't recommend, I guess, going that route. I think that'd be a part of the explanation for people is, hey, we can either approve this and start fixing the roads, or here's what happens if we don't approve it, and it's really not a favorable roll of the dice on that situation. So
I'm not sure I would recommend it either, but I guess I'd like to see us start putting some information out and get some feedback about what our residents want. Are they comfortable paying the millage they're paying now? Are they comfortable paying more, or do they want it to go down? That's what we need to find out.
Keep in mind too, if you're putting an assessment on a property, you're also implying that there will be legal fees involved. You'll be bonding so that there'll be interest over that 20 years that currently we're utilizing funds that we already have for future use. So we're putting our money into the roads with money that is currently in our budget, not only in our budget, but they're funded already, and we wouldn't be funded on that scenario. We would have to bond at some point, and there is interest-related expenses, and then also the banking fees and the legal fees that are associated with that. So there's
What Tim mentions right there is another alternative from the city. As we're on a pay-as-you-go basis. We're utilizing money that we have in our budget and utilizing it in the given budget year. There's an alternative to do a bond for road construction and get more done at one time that would involve borrowing costs spread over a period of time and those kind of things too. And it's a question of approach that would give you short-term satisfaction of having a huge increase in the PASER rating, but then you've got your hands potentially tied for a period of time paying back that borrowing that you did up front. So that's another approach that we could look at in terms of an alternative. Familiar with other communities doing it that way, and we could look at doing it that way as well. But again, you end up with if you make a huge impact at a given point in time, 20 years from now, the bill's coming due on all of those again. Plus everything that didn't get fixed in that upfront cycle has gotten worse, and 20 years later, you're stuck holding the bag on that again. So I mean, there's no win scenario. It's just a variety of alternatives to look at.
For this last statement that we have on this slide, this is primarily useful on West Maple. So we took money out of our general fund and put it into roads this year for the West Maple project, just because of the expense involved.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of thoughts on, we're talking about a special assessment. That's what we were talking about, right? That's, I don't like, we weren't talking about that?
It's a possibility, but.
Yeah, I don't like that you've got some people whose roads are green, some that are reds, and ask them, what do you think about the roads? I think it's kind of our job here to, find what's best. We represent the folks, and we're going to get to, maybe I should just say, can you just get to the next one? Okay, good. Because
I was just going
according to this, and even if it's, I know this has been around a couple of years now, and I don't know if it's been updated, but let's just say it's certainly in the neighborhood. If we are to, increase the millage by 1 mil, that will bump us up to an area where we can simply maintain you know, what we've got, nothing really gets improved? Is that what I'm reading here?
You're reading that it would go from 4.1 to 4.5.
Oh, okay, so we'll.
Yeah, it will go up, and-
With the,
Yes.
and then with a 0.75 mil increase, it'll go up, but again, very, you know, a little more slight, to 4.3?
Yes?
Okay. And I guess if it's just to add a half a mil, that's where it's strictly
Starts going
maintain
down.
what we got, doesn't get better. Doesn't get
Actually, it
worse.
still gets a little bit worse.
It does, yeah, it does.
It's worse, more slow.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right, 4.1,
Slower.
4. Gotcha, yeah.
Right.
Okay. So isn't this the bottom line? If we want to increase the roads, we need more funds
Need
for it.
funds.
There's no other way around it.
And you mentioned this is slightly dated information, it goes back to last year, I believe. So with the inflationary impacts, you know, you're not going to get to 4.5, it's going to be something less than that. You're not going to get to 4.3, it's going to be something less than that. Depending, right, if inflation becomes more intractable and longer lasting, if it's only a year or two and things go back to normal after that, maybe, but prices tend to be sticky once they've gone up. So I don't know how much that would be true. But that's all things that we'd have to take educated guesses at and be prepared that it might not turn out to be as rosy as all that if we have higher costs than we experience.
Yeah.
Because that is dated information from last year. This last year's been a historically unprecedented inflationary experience. It's a problem, so.
So, again, I think that's our bottom line, you know, it's, you know, I understand and I trust that you're maintaining and prioritizing and, you know, it's nice to know, you know, where the tough spots are and where we're okay, but, you know, we're not gonna improve anything without more money to do it.
Right.
Am I missing this at all anywhere?
No.
That's a tough question.
Councilmember Carolyn Fox?
So I'm just going to say, I would be in favor of looking, I'm not in favor of a bond. I'd be in favor of looking at extending the millage and getting that additional information.
Yep. So just for clarity's sake, because I don't want people to misunderstand what we're talking about here, it's council would be discussing the possibility of putting a question before the voters to maintain, decrease, increase the millage collection for road projects in the city. That's the question. You'd be putting it to the voters if you decided you wanted to pursue that. And if your suggestion is that you would like to at least get better information on what that would look like, what would be the proper number to land on in terms of the millage change, we can take that forward and do some additional analysis, give you better information, and come back, revisit, and have a decision by council if you want to go down that path or not, and what is the ending point that you want to get to in terms of the question to put before voters.
Yeah. My opinion is I think that's the best way to go. Also, we're not going to be able to get it on the ballot in November for whatever we do right now because the time crunch and stuff like that. So I think, you know, and this will probably be the kiss of death, but, you know, when we go to our residents with this information and show them, they usually support our decisions to do these things. So I would rather take our time and do it right than just throw something together and
It depends
see
on
what happens.
how much forethought you want to do on it in terms of the timing of it. Yeah, you know, if we're trying to get on the primary ballot, not going to happen November.
Yeah.
Possibilities.
Councilmember Gacho?
What would you say it would be like an ideal number that we should strive to have our PACER rating be at annually? Don't take time either. Like,
We want them all done, right? And it's a matter of affordability. It's a matter of where we're at. Do we want the high end, or we want to continue to get better is what I'm hearing. So at that, we need almost a full mill. Now, would it be enough to have 0.75 for a while? Yeah.
Like, it's setting aside inflation and costs and all that, I mean, if you were in charge of roads, what is a good number to be at with a PACER rating?
With a PACER rating, we like to keep our average above 5.
Okay, so that's what I was looking
And
for.
that would be always our goal.
It's like all these numbers we can talk about, 3/4 of a mil, 1 mil. It's all relative to the extremely bad roads we have right now.
Right.
It's not this gets us to where we should actually be numbered. So
Right.
I guess when we're talking about looking at data, that would be, I think, a projection to make against current costs, but just in general is what does, over that 10-year period, what does it take to get us to above 5? Because 4.1 now is just barely above crumbling
Right.
on the Pacer rating, and so 4.5 is like still moderately above
That,
crumbling. It's not, hey, we made a big jump, it's our roads still stink.
right, and the longer you wait, the worse that number gets.
Yeah.
Because as you go into the 1s and 2s, it's a full replacement of most of that roadway. So there's more expense. There's a base material that has to be down here. It's a longer period of time before they complete the whole project. So there's that involved too. So if we can keep them at 5, we can extend the road life and not have to, it's the cost of those pieces versus a full replacement, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
And the 1 mil increase doesn't even get us above 5, according to the current that last year's projection, not even current projection. And, you know, when you factor in cost increase, et cetera, I mean, you know, the floor of getting into the neighborhood of 5 at least is the additional 1 mil, just for discussion's sake. And that doesn't even get us to the 5 point.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be expecting the number to come back above 2 additional mills. And I think that's part of what you and I spoke about a little bit is we work on a 10-year capital plan, but roads last at least twice that long. So maybe we need to have a separate road plan and program and look at how much would it take to replace all of our roads and then divide that by what, or compared against our taxable value as a city, or how many parcels we have, and kind of figure out what the real amount would be. And I think that's what Councilmember Behrman was talking about a little bit, is what is the adjustment that would get us back to what we should have. And I would worry that even what we should have, based on the original millage, won't cover roads now. So
Right.
we have to do our own math again and figure out, here's what it would take today, and then hopefully we add some more on to plan for the future. So.
Councilmember Berman.
Maybe you know this and maybe you don't. The safety path millage, has that come up?
That one comes up before this, I believe.
And then we also have the operating millage as well, correct? I just want to make sure that we're keeping it.
I didn't bring my budget book, I should have.
I just want to make sure that we're keeping it, and, because we have all 3 of them that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years, and we got to be careful that when we put these forward, you know, that we get all of them approved, if that's what we want.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you, the Councilmember Behrman. I agree with that. I was thinking that, you know, we keep the current millage, add our 5/10 that we have at our discretion inside our approved millages, and then potentially, I didn't think about the safety path. But one of my concerns is there's just an enormous number of 4s and worse in the city. And at some point, we're going to reach the capacity of the industry to, you know, we couldn't do all these in 1 year, even if we wanted to. There's going to be a cadence to it. And even if we could in the capacity, we wouldn't want to, because you're going to shut down too much traffic and people wouldn't be able to get around. So there's got to be a little, you know, plan to this. And part of that plan for me would be, what does it cost? You know, not in terms of mills, but in terms of dollars. And, you know, 1 mil, how many millions does that generate for us? And where would we use that first? And where would we use it in year 2? And where would we use it in year 3? More than just Pacer ratings, but what physically is actually going to be done per plan. And I know we need to adjust along the way. But I think if we've got to sell property owners on that, that would be required, rather than talking in terms of mills and and the Paisley ratings. It's your road's going to get paved in 3 years, and your road's going to get paved in 4 years, and your road's going to never get paved because it's perfect. And but eventually we'll have to, because I assume when we're done with the worst of them, we're going to have to go back to the best of them and do those. So, you know, I don't know how long the road lasts, but it's probably about 30 years, I would guess, based on some of these ratings in here and knowing how long the subdivisions have been around. Anyway, I would personally, I like Councilmember Berman's idea, support that for working. Let's see if we can work within the money we have already and get that approved before we go asking for more, and back that up with some real data on dollars, lane miles, which subdivisions or which roads, and the course of time. Thank you.
1 mil is about 700,000. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe, summarize my thoughts about it. And I recall 26 years ago, we moved into this community, and at that time, the discussions were just starting on the safety paths, local roads and everything. And we did those millages. They had overwhelming support. I think, I remember, former city manager Michael Dornan, posting to me that one thing we can say is that we have a plan for all of our subdivisions. Again, there was only about 1/3 of the subdivisions at that time, but we had a plan of repairing them once every 20 years in some major way, whether it was a mill and overlay or a reconstruction. And that was, we were proud as a city, besides our snow removal and our leaf pickup, to be able to say that against most communities. I think the taxpayers welcome, well-constructed roads, well-maintained roads. So I don't think there'd be a problem going back out and having the discussion armed with the right data. And I agree, we absolutely need the right data. I would favor a continuation in some way, shape, or form of a road millage, and get the data behind us to say, okay, here's where we need it to be, for it to be practical and to keep our roads in decent condition. And I favor that above a bond or a SAD, because I'm very familiar with SADs and how they can cause a lot of grief at time of sale. So I think let's get the data, and let's think about how Proposal A and the Headley rollback play in that over the 20-year period, or could. I know it's hard to crystal ball it. You can say, hey, this may be insufficient in the year 2036 or whatever. But I would say we really need to think about that. I don't think we have to rush and get it on the ballot this year and do anything like that. It would be just a little premature about the data, as Councilman Sharp and Behrman said. So let's get the data. Let's make a very, very informed decision then going into next year.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. I guess I'd be curious to see how fast HRC can come back with information. My fear, and it's not out of rushing just to get something on the ballot, even though, well, I guess it is, I don't want to rush necessarily, but since it's a tax income factor, if it isn't, like, even if it were past this upcoming November, we collect it for next year's budget. So if we vote on it next year, it's 2 more years from now that we can start to make any impact. The roads suffer now. So I would rather, if we can push on HRC to get something done, not to cut corners, but if we can get something back that we can make a decision based off of in that time, I wouldn't, I guess, want us to rule it out mentally, making that decision, or call it rushing, but obviously we need the information. I don't know how quickly it can come back, but I'd rather start making an impact next year, hopefully, instead of 2 years from now.
In order to get that on the ballot, we would have to have the decision by council in August, so we only have.
Yeah, mid-August would be the deadline. We just verified that.
Last day.
And then on the millage
We know that
question,
procedure.
if I may, Your Honor, the millage question, the additional operating and the sidewalk millage expire in '24, and then the local roads expires in
So going back to that, my concern would be putting them all, letting them all happen at the same time could be problematic. And then I guess my only follow-up question would be, are we looking to not wait to 2026 and basically do a new local roads millage that would replace that one? Is that possible? Or does it have to be a supplemental one going forward and we still have to do another one in 2026?
Yeah, you could do a, the language could get drafted, I would suppose, to replace the existing millage, the existing approved voter millage and change it to a different amount.
So to replace the one that expires in 2026 immediately with one that's 2 mills.
Right.
Going forward.
I'm not an attorney, but I'm pretty sure we can do this.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No, that's,
All right.
we get data, we can go forward quicker. I'm with that.
I think that's the direction that will get us the data and we'll move forward.
Sounds good.
I guess just to clarify, an answer on whether we would need to, whether we can replace the current millage or if we have to run in like a supplemental one concurrently, data from HRC on updating the numbers we have plus what would it take on a 20-year basis to get us to 5 and above. Was there anything else that anyone would want to make a decision?
What I will do is, in terms of the second part of that question, that the Councilmember Smiley's favorite graph will update that to something that will add a number that puts us above 5 as well, right? Because right now it just takes us to the precipice of 5.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to answer Councilmember Gottschall's question, for me personally, the data behind the ratings and the average and the expenses over the years to get us those averages, that would be necessary for me. Not just, very good work. I'm sure there's lots of work behind this. We haven't seen the supporting data for the ratings, for the mileage, the lane miles, all those things that support the 5 average. That would be necessary for me.
I think it was a few.
Go ahead.
I think it was a few years ago that you or someone else had presented some of the traffic, the camera footage in it.
Yeah.
Is that like what you're talking about, or?
No, I've driven the roads. I know they're terrible. I just want to know which, how much does it cost to pave, and don't answer please here, it's just a rhetorical question. How much does it cost to pave Loon Lake Road from Loon Lake Road all the way to past Beck or wherever, I forget where it stops. Beck stops before that, because it's all orange, and are we going to do that all in 1 year? Do we do half, or do we, how do we do that? Yeah. Is it
individual project cost?
Yeah, and do we do, do we have does the industry have the capacity to do that and Potter the same year, or do we split them up? Because we can't, even though they're both the worst, do we do them both at the same time, or do we split them up? And then there's a bunch of other red ones in there that are subdivisions and such. I don't know what those priorities are. Major roads are, for me, would be priority, but but that would be the plan. But I'd like to see what the cadence is and the dollars.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
One final question, Tim. When we went out, and I remember our only Pacer Road 1 at that time was West Road between Beck and the eastern city limits. And we had a lot of discussion about that, and when HRC went out, we found some grant monies. At that time, when we did the initial look at that, it was $1 million per lane mile. What is it in today's dollars?
That's correct. And we'll just
2.5 or 3 or?
Well, just this past year, they're saying that it's at 25 to 35% more.
So it's about $1.25 million per lane mile.
That's a good estimate right now.
I thought it was higher than that.
Is that concrete
Well, that's just
or
open this
asphalt?
last year.
Because the West Road's concrete. Is that concrete or asphalt, or are they all the same?
That's concrete on West, but then the portion that we did in asphalt was $1 billion.
That was really replaced.
It was.
But I'm not going to remember that for next meeting, so the more that's written down for me is better.
For all purposes. I just wanted to get that in.
You good?
I can be good.
All right, everybody good? All right.
Thanks, Ted, for the work.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Councilmember Gatchel, for bringing this up. We're going to move on to new business. New business number 1 is a recommendation to approve a one-year contract with the Oakland County Equalization Division for assessing services for a period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle and Clerk Catherine Buck to sign the contract. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Brown?
Yeah, so we have the report summarizes the case here as to what's in front of us for a new contract with Oakland County Equalization Division to conduct or to provide the assessing services that the city currently utilizes through them. It includes appraisals of property, processing of real and personal property affidavits, attendance at board of review, defense and tax tribunal appeals, and assessment rolls, preparation, maintenance, etc. We have proposed costs in front of you, and it talks about the 4% cost increase that's reflected in the current contract, which brings an estimated cost based on that 2022 cost of $90,802, and the table lists the costs as projected over the years. So it would increase to $94,434 with that 4% cost increase under the table information that's provided to you. We're looking for approval to enter into an additional one-year contract with Oakland County Equalization for assessing services for July of 2022 through June 30th of 2023.
In years past, we signed a multi-year contract for this, correct? But
Yeah,
for 1 year?
Yeah, this is for a 1 year. I heard there might be something in the offing for the next year.
I hear, yeah.
Might be more than 4%.
Yeah, they're reassessing. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Just one question. Of our surrounding communities, do most or all use Oakland County as well?
Yeah, I'd say the majority don't have their own assessor. It's difficult to find assessors that are qualified. It's difficult to provide that level of service without a very large budget. I know Novi had their own assessor that provides that service. There are some larger communities that do it. There are some smaller communities that think they can do it more cost effectively that attempt to do that. It's my recommendation that we continue with the Oakland County Equalization Division contract for at least another year, depending on what happens with the next year's increase, which is something we'll have to look at.
I do support it. I just was curious. Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brown Fox?
Just a point to Councilmember Resnick's question. I would find it, I would be very surprised if we could get an assessor for this amount or less.
Would be a tall order, I definitely agree. And then you're stuck with one person, right? If something comes up that's beyond their capacity, you'd have to hire an additional consultant to handle something that was of a specific nature, perhaps. So there's other costs that can come into play as well, even beyond what you think you might be incurring up front.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve a one-year contract with Oakland County Equalization Division for assessing services for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle and Clerk Catherine Buck to sign the contract. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moves us on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to authorize an extension and third contract addendum effective July 1, 2022 of a professional service agreement with Laura Cloutier to provide services to the Wixom Downtown Development Authority as Executive Director for a period ending June 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So,
Support.
Very good. City Manager Brown, you want?
Yeah, so again, a report talks about the details in association with this particular requested action. I'll try to make it long story short. There was a prior council action that happened in March of 2022 that extended the current extension through the end of the fiscal year, just to match it up with the end of the fiscal year. So we're currently under an amendment or extension that runs from March 16th, 2022 to June 30th, 2022. And now we're asking for action on an additional one-year extension of that contract with the contractor providing DDA Executive Director related services from July 1, 2022 through 6/30/2023. And that's the first step of the action that's before you, is a third contract addendum to accomplish that. And then there was also action taken by the DDA at a meeting that they held where it was recommended by the DDA using DDA funding in their budget to increase the annual cost of the contract or payment to the contractor from $45,000 to $50,000 annually. So that's the second piece of the action before you. And that action of the DDA board happened at their May 24th meeting. Both the extension or addendum and the increase from $45,000 to $50,000. So Laura Cloutier is the contractor that's providing the services to the DDA as the executive director, and that would be the two actions that would be asked before you this evening on her contract for services.
All right, and also with us tonight is the DDA chairperson Vanessa Willett and co-chair Kristen Resnick. So if any council has questions. Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
I don't necessarily have any questions, but I do have a comment. And I don't want my comment to hopefully it doesn't come across or imply anything negative about Ms. Cloutier's work or the services that she provides, but I can't support a 10% plus increase in a contract. I know it's a little different because it's, which I had to call and ask questions because I was confused why it was even coming before council if it's in the DDA's budget, but my understanding is that's the way it's always been. But yeah, I just can't support a 10% increase in the cost. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Vanessa Willett, 1455 Cranberry Court. So the 10% increase, the actual initial executive director contract was written or approved by City Council not to exceed $50,000. This is the third year of that contract. Ms. Cloutier has put in additional hours well beyond the minimum, especially with the first year being COVID and really second year being COVID, with no increase whatsoever. We're really not increasing, we're just maximizing the contract value that was previously approved by City Council for this position. In addition, we did put this in our budget for this year as a line item at $50,000 as a suggested value, so it is included in that. And we've also, there was a request for an increase to more of a full-time executive director, and with our addition of helping share in some city staffing costs, we've decided to keep it where it's at and see how this next year goes before basically putting it out for bid again, that position, to see who else comes up before we change the position. And to be totally honest, the responsibilities of that position have increased along with the junction, a lot of the activities that we're doing, the increase in funding that we have and projects that we have. And to be quite frank, it's been very difficult, and she's put a lot of hours in getting volunteers, committee members, and things like that to put a lot of things on for the city that she's been instrumental in. So that's my opinion, and I appreciate your opinion as well.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Willett, how many hours a week do you think Ms. Cloutier puts in? Contract just says working week. What's the DDA's assessment of the number of hours she puts in?
So the initial hours, and I'm going to take this off just memory. The initial hours, I would say in the first year and a half, were probably closer to 33 hours a week. Though again, as you start a new position, right, it may take you longer to do certain tasks than it would once you become used to doing those tasks. Though we've also increased the amount of items that she's responsible for and taking leadership on from when the contract initially started. I would say now she averages, 28 to 30 hours. And quite frankly, in retrospect, other DDAs for this type of position with the type of pay significantly more. So I think it just depends on where we're at. I'm not saying go crazy more. I'm saying you approved a $50,000 budget. I think that she's earned that as a contractor and not as a city employee, which again, some DDAs have city employees. We're not paying benefits on her, 401k, nothing. So I think I think it's a fair,
If I may just chime in on something that relates to Councilmember Sharp's question there. If you look at the original professional services agreement in the middle section on the first page, section 1, duties and performance, the last sentence basically talks about a hourly estimate of what would be required. It doesn't spell out that you shall work this many hours, but it talks about it's unlikely the level of effort would be less than 25 hours on average, and they're working, she's working hours beyond that would be part of the justification for the increase.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
So I appreciate the additional information as far as the additional hours and the comps, the comparable with other communities. That would have been nice to have, just to, as more justification, because just looking at this and thinking, oh my gosh, that's almost 11%, but to have additional information would be helpful.
thank you, we will consider that next time.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thanks. My understanding was that this is a relatively new job, a new position. Is it like a year and a half that you started?
It's a little over 2 years. We
Little over
started
2 years now.
in March of 20.
That you started at 45. We haven't, it hasn't gone, okay. And yeah, it was an evolving job, and after 2 years, you kind of can see, all right, we can, and you allowed yourself to have this 50 grand to get to from a budget standpoint. It was time to move her up to that. So I think that's fine. Everything I've heard, she, and works tremendously, and you guys all, like the job she's doing. So, yeah, I'm fine with it. That's all.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I just wanted to add to some of the data that the independent contractor is also required to have their own insurance policy, general liability insurance, and file their own business C-337 and all. So I strongly support this, and I'm familiar with what we had approved prior, so.
Anybody else? All right, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize an extension and third contract addendum effective July 1, 2022 of a professional services agreement with Laura Cloutier to provide services to the Wixom Downtown Development Authority as Executive Director for a period ending June 30th, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. New business number 3 is a recommendation to renew a 1-year professional services agreement for information technology support services with BPI Information Systems of Southfield, Michigan at an annual cost of $76,287 with funding allocated from account number 101-228-801.282 IT support, and authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle to sign a renewal agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Brown, I'll give this to you again.
Yeah, so Drew Benson was the person who authored the report in the first place, and I approved it, so I'm going to go over the details of it. It relates to an existing contract extension for an additional, or an additional contract being extended for an additional year. It reflects a 2.5% increase in service fees, which is a reasonable cost increase. It's based on the number of computers that are supported through the contract. The change in that was negligible, so the increase is also negligible, and it results in the projected expense being $76,287 for the upcoming year. We're advocating that makes sense for us, given in the first place, the critical nature of the relationship with your IT service provider. Also, we're in the middle of penetration testing and things of that nature that is ongoing, and I think it would behoove us to continue to have those services through our IT support provided by BPI, so they can continue to see that done. We could take a look at potentially bidding out the service next year. It has been several years since it was bid out previously, but I think that the time wasn't appropriate in 2022 to bid it out, and we'll take a look at taking care of that in the next cycle after this current extension would expire, if we can get council approval for that 1-year extension. So that's the recommendation, is to proceed with that for an additional year with that 2.5% cost increase based on the number of units that are being supported, resulting in a cost of just over $76,000 for the next year.
All right, any questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yeah, Mr. Brown, I know Mr. Blackburn is not here, and Marilyn might be able to answer this, but are they also assisting us on reviewing like our cyber policy, our insurance policy, and is that provided through MML as well, or our MMRMA?
MMRMA, yeah, we do have some insurance through there, and we have looked at that with BPI in the past, and we felt we were solid on that front. And the account executive for BPI recently retired or resigned, and that's why we don't have somebody here tonight. And I also thought that it was fairly perfunctory. I don't think we had anybody that showed up surprisingly. So, yeah, that's the reason why the representative that you normally see is in with us tonight. So.
Just that, municipalities were like number 2 on the ransomware targets for the last 2 years, and I just want to make sure that our cyber policy is keeping pace with what goes on in the world.
As you advocated for the penetration testing process that we're in the middle of, we're hoping that's going to hearten us as a target for those kind of things as well and improve our processes. We're still going through that process, and when we get done, we'll come up with a summary that we provide to council to show what we learned, the improvements that we made in relation to what we learned, and those kind of things. So that's something we expect to complete in the next fiscal year. And you're right, the environment is more perilous than it's ever been for any organization, and cities are certainly not immune to that and are among the favorite targets for it. So it's something we're pleased to be addressing with that penetration testing, and we expect to keep an eye on that as something that we continue to be sharp on and focused on, because it's a necessary area to be paying very close attention to.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you. So Mr. Blackburn retired. Well, good for him, I guess. I'll miss him. My real question was, I forgot it already. Gosh darn it, the retirement thing threw me off. When the penetration assessment is completed, we'll get some sort of report or results of that.
Right.
And did I miss it in there? Did you say kind of roughly when to expect?
Yeah, I wouldn't put an estimate on it right now because there's a little bit of work in front of us. I wouldn't want to commit to anything right now. It'd be too uneducated of a guess here, but we expect it'll be done in probably in the first 6 months of the fiscal year.
The fiscal year, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to renew a 1-year professional services agreement for information technology support services with BPI Information Systems of Southfield, Michigan, at an annual cost of $76,287 with funding allocated from account number 101-228-801.282 IT support, and authorized Mayor Patrick Beagle to sign the renewal agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to new business number 4. And that's a recommendation to authorize resolutions for special liquor license applications for events at Sibley Square Park on June 23rd, 2022, and July 21, 2022, and for an event at the Community Center on December 2nd, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Very good. Ms. McGee, this is kind of a routine thing we do every year. This just will allow us to have a beer tent for the Light the Night and the Hot Blues and Barbecue, and also for the tent at the tree lighting ceremony, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Any questions? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're allowed 12 a year, and we're only applying for 3.
Very good. Any questions? You're getting off easy. I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize resolutions for the special liquor license applications for events at Sibley Square Park on June 23rd, 2022, and July 21st, 2022, and for an event at the Community Center on December 2nd, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business number 5 is a recommendation to approve an agreement for auxiliary sheriff's deputy services with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, and authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle to sign the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Public Safety Director Moore.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This is, you have before you a 3-year agreement between the City of Wixom and Oakland County for auxiliary sheriff's deputy services. Since 2015, we have supplemented the ranks of the Wixom Police Department on Light the Night, or the fireworks event, with a deputy sheriff sergeant, so a supervisor, and anywhere from 13 to 15 deputy sheriffs. When I first became chief, the number was 15 to 16. Over the years, we've reevaluated that, and my plan this year, if this is approved, is to have a supervisor, a sergeant, and 13 deputies. And this contract allows that.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Moore, just two questions. Totally support it. I think the presence is a great deterrent, but like how much is that total? What, just as we balance the total costs of events like these versus the goodwill and the public desire for them?
I budget for this every year, and this year...
That was my other question. It's in the police budget?
It is.
Okay.
It's in, the account is consultants and personnel, and this year, following the menu that was provided to us, it'll be about $6,400.
Okay.
For a sergeant and 13 debs.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Councilman Sharp kind of answered what I was going to say. The presence is deterrent, and to my recollection, in the last 7 years, we've not had any incidents, major incidents due to that presence. So
That's correct, Deputy Mayor, yes.
Support.
Very good. Any other questions? Seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve an agreement for all auxiliary sheriff's deputy services with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office and authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle to sign the agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
New business number 6 is a recommendation to award a bid to highway maintenance and construction of Romulus, Michigan for chip seal of Howell Lane at a cost of $37,083.54 from the capital improvement account plan number 411-283-976.355 road replacement in fiscal year 2022-2023 and approve the related budget amendment. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Support.
Mr. Sigmund.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we are looking to put a chip seal overlay on this Howell Drive, and what that consists of is a 3/8 inch gravel base with an asphalt type of fog seal over it. It's similar to the roads that we do in the parks. So Gilbert Willis and Gunnar Metella, we've chip sealed in the past as well. What we're finding is we get about 5 to 7 years out of a chip seal, and we anticipate that here as well. Now, we're only going up to the fences at DPW, so we'll still have some work in the future to do out towards Spurt, if you will, and also at the wastewater plant. We do have some upgrades to the wastewater plant that are programmed in, and we don't feel that it's of value to go any further than the fences at this time.
Yeah, because I know you've got a big barrel out there in front of like the...
We do. Yeah, that's covering up one of the manholes that we'll have repaired prior to doing this chip seal. So that one, there's a 42-inch sewer below that barrel there, and our manhole is starting to degrade a little bit. So we want to make sure that that gets patched up before we do this chip seal. And that's the other caveat to this particular recommendation was that we have to plan it for next fiscal year. We had it programmed for this fiscal year, and highway maintenance just cannot get to it until September of this year. So we're just pushing it along a little bit.
Questions? Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. Is this the same company that does the parks for us?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
That was the only question.
Will this help our PASER rating?
No.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Sigma, so I'm a frequent user of those roads because I live right there and I take advantage of Spurt. And if there's a road in Wixom other than Maple and Potter that need redone, it's this one. So, but you're saying it just goes from Charms to the fences of the DPW offices, is that right? So it kind of stops? Because I think my suspension warranty is voided on my truck from driving over that road back there. Just kidding. So question about Spurt back there. They bring in a lot of big truck traffic, and I know that they pay us something for that. Do we take that into account on their, wear and tear on the facilities to get back to their dirt road that they use? It's frankly better than it used to be because we don't have to drive all the way back in there.
Correct.
Big, heavy equipment loaded down with whatever they're loaded down with.
We do
How's that?
take that into effect, or into account when, we'll look at that again when we update their contract. They do on average, or fund 50 to 100,000 a year into the program.
Yeah.
For this kind of thing, but this particular was coming out of the 10-year capital.
Okay. And the chip seal, the reason for that is just, doesn't have to be real smooth, or it's not like you're driving your Tesla on it or
Right.
anything. Most people-
And you know, that is
It's only your truck,
alternative.
Councilmember Sharp.
Well, my truck's an F-150, so it can handle it. I was just kidding about the warranty.
That is an alternative to a less expensive road. You know, it's one step from a gravel road, so.
Okay, well, I support it. Definitely is needed back there. Thank you.
Your Honor, if I can, if nobody else has any questions, I wanted to make a comment in general on what's going on here. So Howell Lane is the roadway that runs from the actual city street to the DPW facility. It's named Howell Lane in honor of former DPW Director Mike Howell, who passed away tragically in too young of an age several years ago. And that's why people might not be familiar with it. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned Mike Howell's passing and the reason for the naming of the road area there being in his honor. So that's it's just something else I wanted to add to the discussion.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award a bid to Highway Maintenance and Construction of Romulus, Michigan for chip seal of Howell Lane at a cost of $37,083.54 from the Capital Improvement Plan account number 411-283-976.355 road replacement in the fiscal year 2022-2023 and approve the related budget amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, just stay right there.
Thank you, sir.
New business number 7 is a recommendation to award the Water System Cross Connection Control Program contract for 5 years to Hydro Corp. Incorporated of Troy, Michigan for an annual amount of $49,128 for the first 2 years and 3 additional years with an increase up to 5%. Authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle and City Clerk Catherine Buck to sign the agreement and approve the associated budget amendment. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is part of the water distribution requirements from the state is to verify that we eliminate cross connections. And a cross connection to our drinking water system could be found in different backflow prevention type of apparatuses. One of the ones that are primary in residential areas is the irrigation systems. So they go through the residential areas and require any irrigation system to have a backflow prevention apparatus that is certified by a plumber. And if they do not wish to participate in that program, they would have to take out their irrigation system, basically. And what that prevents is a potential, if we ever lost pressure in our system and the irrigation system was on, the water has a potential of coming back into our drinking water system. So in the residential areas, it would be implied that some of them have fertilizers and some of them have insecticides in their lawns, that contaminant could possibly get into the drinking water system. And backflow preventers prevent that. In industrial areas, we have our high priority pieces that are inspected on an annual basis, and those are industrial type of companies that are inspected as a higher probability and also a higher potential for impact to our water system. So we we do those on an annual basis. And then there's a system in the middle of that, the industrials and commercials that are inspected every 3 years. So there's a priority to it, and over the last 3 or 4 years, we've increased our residentials considerably. And since the program started back, I believe 2007, we've increased the residentials. So residentials are inspected every 10 years. The low impact ones are every 3 years, and then obviously the high ones are annually. And each of those areas increased. So they're coupled with increases in inflation. Their bid came in at $49,128 per year, and they said that they would stick with that for 2 years and potentially go up on a CPI after that for the remaining 5 years of this potential contract.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Just a comment, I was approached by a Hillsborough resident last fall who came up to me quite irate saying, "What is this?" And I said, hey, the program, it was turned by Public Act in 2007, it's been going on. I'm surprised it took this long for them to get to Hillsborough because he's lived there for like 27 years. I would suggest in our next water bill quarterly, let's put something in. What is a cross-control program? What does it mean? What do I have to do? Because for most people, it's just putting hose bibs and, getting the inspection from the certified plumber. A lot of plumbers are not going for the state certification. And if there's a way to put in, I don't know if there's a way to do that legally, but say, hey, here's the 10 people that do it in Wixom or that are qualified to do it. So maybe just at least a educational piece about what a cross-control program is in the water bill.
And we work with homeowners associations as well. Oakland County, we partner with them obviously too. They have a list of certified plumbers in the area that are capable of doing this work. So we get that to homeowners associations. The homeowners associations that we are working with, say this year, we've been talking with them, and they can get a better rate. It does pay to shop around.
You get about maybe 5% attendance at homeowners association meetings. So maybe in the water bill, it might be a better way to do it.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Berman?
I guess that was going to be my question. Is it 300 homeowners at random, or are you doing communities at a time?
They're systematically going through the entire residential areas. So we base that off of the utility billing system. So each year we give them the list of residents in the utility billing system, and they go through and inspect, and then they also send letters and resend letters if we don't get any compliance on that. So
what does this cost the average homeowner to have someone come out and do this?
To have somebody, and it can vary. I've seen them as low over the last few years of maybe $50 to $100, depending on the system, the irrigation system that they have, and then also how many are in a row. So if you can get your neighbors involved, it does help because they can inspect several of them over an afternoon and be able to get a cost of.
Can you write down Councilmember Behrman's address and make sure he gets checked this?
We got a $50 rate last time.
Yeah, $50, $60.
75 for me.
75, yeah.
Again,
It depends.
there was 12 of us in our neighborhood who got together, and I think it was $55, and he did all 12 at the same time, so.
It does help to get together with the folks.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. Looking at how the appropriation of retained earnings budget that's in here, what department is that under? It didn't say, and I didn't have my.
The 591 accounts are all water.
Okay.
It's through the escrow
This
account.
is just holding on to more of our income then?
Correct.
Is this program built into our estimate or what we charge for water?
Yes.
Okay. So-
And we had anticipated over the last few years, it's been about 38,000, and it's gone up because of the increases in the number of inspections.
will there ever be a point that this program is like, we don't need a vendor to do it, do you think? Or every year until this never goes away?
This is a public act for the drinking water systems, and I don't expect that it will go away in my lifetime.
It's nothing that we could have a staff member doing though?
I had talked with Felicia Vandenbrink about this, and we could work that in future contracts. That is a potential. We do also have members on staff that are able now to do some of the inspection as well, but it's a matter of time and expense. And this particular company has a very good working relationship. They have a program that's been established, and it's not scrutinized, if you will, as much as other programs. So because they've got it dialed in at that point. So.
And then, I didn't notice, we didn't bid this out, did we?
No, we did bid this out, and they were the only respondent.
Okay, I guess I missed that part.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Thank you. That was one of the questions I was going to ask, is if we had anyone on staff that was certified to do that. And it sounds like we do.
We have someone that's certified to test, but not to maintain the program. I guess I have the water licenses for the inspections, and we could do that, but that's a matter of
That'd be a full-time
expense.
job, though.
It is. Yes.
Okay, yeah. And then I do like the idea of putting something in the bills to talk about the cross-connection program, because most people have no idea what that is, and somebody shows up and, well, you know, but,
Right.
yeah, okay. And then my last question was, so for this $49,000, how many inspections typically do they do for us a year, whether it's residential, commercial?
Usually just over 300 that are inspected on a given basis. We have 3,600 accounts, I believe, and there's 150 of them that are annually, and then we do roughly 200 of the other ones.
Do you know what the compliance rate is?
Our compliance rate, it's running about 85%. We're doing fairly well on that. They're tracking it in a decent, and we send a lot of mail, and eventually we get to the right place with our residents.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I get a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the Water System Cross Connection Control Program contract for 5 years to Hydro Corp. Incorporated of Troy, Michigan for an annual amount of $49,128 for the first 2 years and 3 additional years with an increase to up to 5%. Authorize Mayor Patrick Beagle and City Clerk Catherine Buck to sign the agreement and approve the associated budget amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Very good. Next up is new business number 8, and that's a recommendation to authorize a resolution to adopt a revised policy relative to the review and granting of financial poverty hardship exemptions by the City of Wixom Board of Review. Motion?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this is related to financial or poverty hardship exemptions that are potentially requested by homeowners that are in a bad financial situation and they cannot afford to pay their property taxes and they look for some relief. Those kind of requests are heard by our Board of Review. Back in October of 2020, you authorized a resolution to adopt the current policy, or sorry, you authorized a resolution to adopt a policy back in October of 2020. In January of 21, the State Tax Commission came up with some additional changes that they were requiring, so we brought it back to council for another action in February of 2021 where we made some changes to the policy and associated documents to match those requirements from the STC, the State Tax Commission. Subsequent to that, in the last several days, we started hearing that there was going to be another issue in relation to this, and that we had an audit that was performed through the State Tax Commission of our policies that are essentially set by our assessor. Earlier in the meeting, we authorized a new contract with Oakland County Equalization Division to proceed with another year of service as our assessor. That Oakland County Department authorizes or develops the resolution as well as other information that's used to set our policy. Unfortunately, there were some issues with it that were determined to be a problem by the State Tax Commission, and because of that, those were only finalized in the last days here. On Monday was when we finally got our hands around what was going to be required in the document changes that would be required to be compliant with it. So because of that, we were either looking at taking action at our June 28th meeting or something else potentially. But as part of the communication, the State Tax Commission said that we're going to need to have these problems addressed and corrected by June 24th, which results in the walk-on item that's before you tonight. Your next council meeting of June 28th would be just in time to be too late. So we're bringing the changes to you as a walk-on item tonight. For that, I apologize, but again, it's services that are provided through Oakland County Equalization and as our assessor. So there were some problems with some of the technical wording of the documents that's referenced. There were removal of references to total household resources, addition of specific references to poverty income guidelines, and adoption of a revised poverty hardship exemption application. So once you take action, hopefully tonight, to authorize the updates to that resolution and to the application package, we'll submit that and we'll be back in good graces with the State Tax Commission. The next Board of Review meeting is set for July of 2022. If we don't take action by that time, we will not be able to hear the poverty exemption requests from residents that may be coming in at that particular Board of Review meeting. If we take care of it today, we'll be in compliance of the June 24th date, and the Board of Review will be able to proceed in July under the new application package and the new resolution, and we'll be able to take care of business as we need to. So that's the reason for the item before you tonight. I do apologize for the walk-on nature of it, but it was outside of our control.
Any questions? All right. Good job. I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize a resolution to adopt the revised policy relative to the review and granting of financial poverty hardship exemptions by the City of Wixom Board of Review. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the new business portion of tonight's meetings. We'll move on to the second call to the public. I'll read those rules again. The public shall address the council during call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do I have anybody for the second call to the public? Just go ahead and step up to the podium, and you can follow.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is George Spencer. I live at 51225 Pontiac Trail. I think I'm a fourth generation family member that's lived there. I'm addressing the City Council tonight in regards to a proposal that I sent to Council in regards to performing a strategic plan for the Wixom Fire Department. Strategic plans are critically important. It's not just a catchphrase or something that we do to fit in with the rest of the cities around us, but it's critically important in charting a new direction for not only the city, but also for your new standalone department, which has not been a standalone fire department for about 19 years. A critical part of this strategic plan would be performing what I call a SCOT evaluation or analysis. That stands for, it's done by an outside individual, non-biased, and it stands for the strengths of the department. It's a critical analysis of strengths, the challenges that the department has, the opportunities that the department has to serve the public and the community, and also the threats that exist to those opportunities. From this information, from the SCOT analysis, the information is developed to take to city leadership and also to our key community members so that we can start to develop a plan of action. Plan of action typically has about 6 to 10 items in which the department is going to move towards achieving. These items are then boiled down to into SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, which are realistic, and also time framed, which considerably helps in not only the management of future budgets, but it also gives council an idea of what's coming down the road. Typically, strategic plans are done for about 5 years, so you know what the fire department is going to be asking you, and you know what the performance of that department is going to be for hopefully the next 5 years. And good strategic plans can also be continued so that there's a reanalysis of the department every year or 2 years, so you can continue that planning process. So there's not surprises, except for the inevitable changes in government that we all have to deal with. But so that there's a good plan out there, so you know what's coming. Some people have said that, you know, we would never want to put extra work onto the fire department right now, considering the critical staffing that they have. But let me go back a little bit and talk to you a little bit about my experience as an incident management team leader and as a section planning chief. When I worked in the state of Washington, I worked in a group of fire chiefs that managed large-scale wildfires. We might have 100, 200 people working on the line at a time, but the planning section was always doing planning for the next operational period or the next day. We did not burden the operational people with that plan, but it was done from its own separate planning division or group that's going to develop the resources and the action plan for the next day or for the next operational period. A nice thing here, if you have me and I have volunteered to help do the strategic plan for the city, would be we would not be burdening our department with extra work. However, after we boil down those action items, it gives a new department head some very, very specific and good guidance so that they know where to start. Now, as a fire chief, if I had had a strategic plan like this in the last 2 departments that I went to, it would have really been a benefit instead of trying to figure out things as you go and trying to do operational things and planning things all at the same time, which can be very challenging. And again, a strategic plan like this, if we start sooner than later, we could have a plan for those action items kind of charted out by mid-August, which, Mr. Manager, I believe was the hiring range for the new fire chief when it was advertised. Basically, strategic planning, and I will tell you, it sometimes can be kind of tough. We have to set our egos aside and be very honest when that SCOT analysis is done, but when it's done properly, we can really develop a comprehensive plan with no surprises that's not only going to benefit the members of the department, it's going to benefit the city and our constituents, and it really can, if done properly, can improve the quality of life for all of our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
We're now
You.
next.
James C. Lowe, 29045 McGanzer Drive. I want to address the council about the poisoned fish in Loon Lake. This happened 4 years ago. I'm a local business, and I lost access to a natural food source. I wonder how I'm going to be made whole. I live on the block of death. When this happened, I contracted Legionnaire's disease and spent 10 days on do not resuscitate. There's been 3 deaths in 5 houses on my block. 2 cancers, kidney disease. You get the idea what's going on. Now I know that there's a study going on, do PFAS affect human health? Well, when the manufacturers are told, yes, this stuff is poison, they'll make some minor adjustments to the chemical compounds and say it's safe. Well, I know enough not to eat toxic fish, but I see the bald eagle down there. Our national bird is being poisoned in Wixom. I see the osprey down there being poisoned in Wixom. We pay millage to the metro parks. They build a platform for the osprey to nest on, and it's being poisoned here in Wixom. And that water runs all the way down the Huron River, poisoned all the fish, and then runs into Lake Erie, a great lake where 80%, more than that, of our country's drinking water comes from. Is this going to be your legacy? As council members, I don't know what's been done or even said for the last 4 years. Who is this company? I know they changed their name. Give me their address, and if I catch a fish, I'll deliver it. Excuse me for being passively aggressive. I could throw the fish in the pond or deliver it to the city manager's office. So I hope something can be done, and I hope something from this council will be done. I'm following the chain of command here. I'm coming here first. The county will be next, then the state, then the feds. If nobody's going to do anything about this, do you want environmental activists coming to Wixom on this? You know, somebody calls me, oh, what's the big concern here for you? Clean water. They looked this up on the computer to see PFAS in Loon Lake. So that's why I've come here tonight about this situation in Loon Lake. There's toxic fish. Who did it? Where are they? It's against the law in this country to poison birds. Our national bird is being poisoned. Who is going to be held accountable? So I hope you can do something right on this issue, and I thank you for listening. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Anybody else for the second call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. The only thing we had on our city manager update was in relation to a nice compliment our community services team received from somebody that participated in one of their events, talking about how great they were to work with, how organized they are, how fun the events are. And it was one of the rare combinations where we got a nice compliment for our staff and community services, as well as a business lead there, because they indicated they were interested in potentially coming up with a business location in the city of Wixom. So we'll be trying to assist them with that as well. So I wanted to make sure that we mention that. Congratulations to the staff and community services for bringing about that compliment from somebody that participates with them on one of their events there. So that's something that we wanted to share. Other than that, we have the dates to remember that are listed there, which includes our concert events, the Light the Night fireworks events, as well as various city meetings that are happening throughout the upcoming month. And I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have or come up with answers that I can tonight, or get back to you if you have something on your mind this evening. So that's all I had this evening.
Any questions? Councilmember Smiley?
Hello, Steve. I didn't get a chance to say hi to you earlier.
Hello.
I meant to touch base with you about this, so I'm just going to, I've got a little, I heard a little rumor, not rumor, somebody had said some report on the Highland Lake, I'm sorry, Highland Park water issue. Have you got an update on that?
Yes and no, nothing that's really substantive. The issue continues to fester a little bit. There's different communities that are reacting differently to it. As you know, we did a communication to the to the governor, bringing it to her attention and asking for some action on that front. And it relates to a community within the GLWA, or Great Lakes Water Authority service area, that hadn't been paying their water bills over the years, and how that was being assessed to communities across the service area for GLWA, including the city of Wixom. We were indicating we had our displeasure with that, and we're looking to see that changed. Other communities were threatening to withhold payments or exclude any portions of the payment that related to the assessment of those additional costs. It has received additional attention since that time, but there is no resolution currently.
Oh, okay. They're telling you, as of July 1st, Oakland County residents will no longer be charged for the Highland Park.
That's news to me. That's even breaking news I hadn't been informed of.
Well,
actually.
like I said, I don't trust my source exactly on this, and I thought, well, you'll know. And
I have not seen
I'll
anything
send you
official,
the
yeah.
information, and maybe it'll help
Yeah,
you.
Tim says he's nodding his head. Tim, why don't you go ahead and address it then?
Tim's not your source, is he?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not trying to be cute with my source. I just, I have a lot of people who tell me stuff, and I'm just like, that sounds great, but I haven't heard my city manager mention it, so
Yeah.
maybe it's not true.
I'm getting scooped here. I apologize.
We did get some information from GLWA over the past few days that has said that they are taking that off our bill moving forward.
Oh, excellent.
So we should.
So it worked.
We should.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so, we're not going to be reimbursed for past,
We don't expect that.
expenses, but we're no longer going to be helping with that,
We are
That just does all
planning.
that.
We are planning to negotiate with them on future rates, and based on pressures and the water usage that we have, and so we'll be asking them a little bit more on that.
Great.
soon.
Thanks.
Councilmember Berman.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you. Steve, just to follow up to 3 weeks ago, my question to you was regarding whether or not residents could sign up to get agendas to our planning commission, zoning, public notices, and you indicated that you would get back, and I just...
Yeah, that's been looked at. I apologize. I don't have the information in front of me. I'll provide an update in the next update or give you a call about it in the meanwhile. But that is something that we were actively looking at, but I don't have the response in front of me. And we have had a personnel change in our department that might have impacted some of that, because some of it might have not been followed up on.
Just bringing it back up 2
Yeah.
minutes later for you.
Yeah, well, I'll find out if I have the information and provide it. I do apologize.
Thank you.
We were actively looking at it right after that meeting. So.
All right. Council comments. Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. Just a couple things. The last 3 weeks, I had the opportunity to, my children, walk the new portion of the Airline Trail. It's come together really well. We were to go right down to Pontiac Trail where it ended. Also, we were able to walk the trail behind the City Hall complex here, which has also come together very well. So just compliments to both of those projects coming together quickly. We've been to the concerts the last 2 weeks. Both of those seem to be very well attended. And then the employee appreciation event also very well done. So thank you to everybody who put that stuff together. And that's all I have.
Very good. Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. Wanted to thank Kay Ash for all of her dedication on the cemetery board the last 18 years, as well as say that I also enjoyed the volunteer and employee picnic that was very well put together. Relating, I guess, to a more serious topic and kind of alluding to some of the questions that I asked Chief Geisler earlier, as well as the plan that Mr. Spencer sent each of us. I think that would be a phenomenal thing to have put together for our fire department. We all recognize that somewhere we've been struggling the last few years in terms of recruitment, having a plan, scheduling, even retention as our numbers have shrunk. So I think having a plan from someone, hopefully we can engage Mr. Spencer in that, because he has a lot of experience both in Wixom and in other departments, but that's not anything since I've been up here that has been discussed for any department. I think it'd be great to have for every department, but particularly the fire department, because that's where I feel are really struggling right now. Relating to, I guess, more of the questions, it's very concerning to keep hearing that we're having 10% or more of our calls get responded to by one person that doesn't even meet the state requirements for medical transport. I don't know how we're even allowed to operate, just to be completely honest. For 2 years now, a number of us have been urging to get a deal done and to get a schedule worked out and to get recruiting worked out, and it's all gone nowhere for at least the last 2 years. And there seems to be some disconnect between the council wanting to get something done and the firefighters union wanting to get something done, and it just gets caught up in the bureaucracy, I guess, where we don't really get updates, and I've confirmed that with other council members that they feel like we're kind of left in the dark, and I think that probably translates to the firefighters also feel like it takes an enormous amount of time to get anything done, and I don't disagree. It's 2 years to get a deal done. It's insane. I feel like in most cases, if it were private businesses, people probably would have been finding other jobs by now. I don't know if it's an attorney thing, a bureaucracy thing. I've said it before, and I feel even more strongly about it now. I would rather just have a meeting between city council and the representatives from the fire union and work it all out, because I can guarantee we could get that done. I don't know what takes so long to get it worked out, and we've seen morale plummet over there, numbers plummet. We're down to eight people to cover the entire city, and if it takes very much longer, the fear is honestly that every call we're going to have to put out a call for assistance to our neighboring communities, and it's going to be Commerce and Novi trying to cover us, and it's completely inappropriate. We've budgeted the money to hire people, and we've seen no action on recruitment. We've even seen people get pushed away because we kind of work in the opposite direction. I don't understand the delay at this point. I wish we had some strength here in terms of just setting a meeting, and I think that's our prerogative as a city council, since ultimately it's our vote anyway. And I don't know how anybody else would feel about that, but I'm past the time of waiting for the same team, I guess, we've been putting forward to get a deal done, because it hasn't happened. So I'm obviously frustrated by it. I've been frustrated the last 2 years. I think it's an absolute disgrace that we have 8 residents covering the entire city 24 hours a day. Even though it's not staffed 24 hours, they're still on call 24 hours a day. They don't have time for their families. They don't have time for anything other than constantly being on call, and that is a shame. Thank you.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
I'd like to send my condolences to the family of Dennis Smith. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you to Deanna McGee and her Parks and Rec team for a wonderful picnic for the staff and volunteers for the city. Really good event, a lot of good food and good socializing, and pretty good weather too helped. Also, one of the interesting things we reviewed in the consent agenda tonight, the cemetery board minutes from June of 2021, a year ago, and in that meeting it said that the columbarium benches were on order. And here it is a year later. Now, I'm looking forward to upgrading my future home with those benches, so I'm hoping they're coming soon. Tim, maybe you can give me an update on that offline somewhere, not now. I saw your name in there. But, and agree with Councilmember Behrman on the airline trail. I wrote it out. The funny thing is you get out to Pontiac Trail all the way out, and it's it's under construction again, so you can't go. But then you come back and we did all that nice concrete work in the corner and now it's all torn up because, they put the concrete in and forgot something or I don't know what happened, but you can't get around on there. So looking forward to that being quickly sorted out so we can enjoy that trail. That's a really nice facility. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. I too want to say thank you to Kay Ash for her 18 years of service on the cemetery board. And yeah, I was really sad to hear about the passing of Dennis Smith. My condolences to his friends and family. God bless him.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Also want to extend our condolences to the family of Dennis Smith. Worked with him really closely on a project when he was our go-to person before Ken Pike, so it was a pleasure working with him. Thank you, Kay Smith. And I also took my inaugural ride yesterday on Phase 2. Went all the way to the western limit and was told by friends of the trail that it was tore up in the Huron Valley portion of it, so I decided not to go any further. But just one comment, let's do everything in our power with Trailway Council, the City of Wixom, and together with RCOC to create traffic calming in that stretch between Wixom Road and the Corex northern jog of the trail. Even yesterday, I was telling the city manager, I watched someone try to race the light and he made it. He probably was doing about 52 miles an hour through that section. He made it, but that trail is going to be awful close to Pontiac Trail, so whatever calming measures we can use with planters or barricades or crossing people sign or blinking yellow lights, I think that the awareness needs to be there, and an extension of that speed limit to 25 all the way to Corex would be, I think, achieves that goal. So, but a great construction, the look of it, and they already had the gravel and the seating and the netting done on that section, so it looks really great. Thank you.
Good. Yep, my condolences to the Smith family and the passing of Dennis, and thank you, Deanna, and to all your staff for a great volunteer and employee recognition picnic. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Ooh. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.